How dare you accuse me of stealing when I just spent hundreds of dollars here? I know my rights, and this harassment ends now.
Officer Michael Thornton had been with the Charlotte Police Department for 14 years. And in those 14 years, he'd compiled a record that should have raised immediate concerns. 23 complaints, 19 of them involving African American citizens. A black cardiologist in South Park, accused of shoplifting at a boutique where she'd just spent $800. An African American attorney in Dilworth questioned about suspicious behavior while waiting for his wife outside Nordstrom. A black professor in Myers Park detained for matching a description while browsing at a bookstore where she taught literature classes. Each one involved an African American professional in a predominantly white commercial district. Each one followed the same script. Black person in upscale store equals potential theft. Each complaint ended identically. Implicit bias training that Officer Thornton attended but never internalized. One Thursday afternoon in Charlotte, his 14 years of seeing criminality in black skin collided with someone he never expected. An African American woman with credentials that commanded respect. Someone who knew the law, knew her rights, and knew exactly what Thornton was doing. And that collision would finally end his career, cost the city $1.8 million, and expose a department that had tolerated his pattern of racial profiling for nearly a decade and a half. Before we continue, where are you watching from? If this is your first time here, please hit that subscribe button. Stories like these need to be shared, and your support helps us bring more truth to light. An African American woman in her early 40s, Dr. Alicia Montgomery, was shopping in the jewelry section of Belk department store in South Park Mall. Dr. Montgomery wasn't just anyone. She was chief of pediatric surgery at Atrium Health, one of the most respected children's hospitals in the Southeast. 15 years of saving children's lives. Published researcher, medical school professor, mother of 3. She was browsing diamond earrings for her daughter's graduation gift, trying on a few pairs, asking the sales associate thoughtful questions about clarity and settings. No crime, no theft, no suspicious behavior, just a successful black woman shopping during her lunch break. But Officer Thornton, working an off-duty security detail at the mall, saw her through a lens warped by 14 years of unchecked racial bias. Couldn't process that an African American woman in the jewelry department could be a pediatric surgeon. Couldn't imagine that the black woman he was about to confront had performed 3 surgeries that morning, saved 2 lives that week, and made more money than he'd see in 5 years. Charlotte, North Carolina. The city's South Park neighborhood is one of the most affluent shopping districts in the Southeast. Median household income, $127,000. Demographics, 78% white. South Park Mall features luxury retailers, Neiman Marcus, Louis Vuitton, Tiffany & Co. The kind of place where seeing a black face that isn't a service worker raises eyebrows. The Belk department store anchors the E-Mall's south end, its jewelry section gleaming with display cases of diamonds, gold, and designer watches. It was 1:45 p.m. on a Thursday afternoon in September. Clear skies, mid-70s, perfect Carolina fall weather. The lunch crowd was thinning, the store moderately busy with well-dressed shoppers. Dr. Alicia Montgomery had been chief of pediatric surgery at Atrium Health for 7 years. 15 years of saving children's lives, of performing complex surgeries, of teaching the next generation of pediatric surgeons. She'd graduated from Howard University, then completed medical school at Duke, where she'd been top of her class. Her surgical fellowship at Johns Hopkins had made her one of the most sought-after pediatric surgeons in the country. Her colleagues called her brilliant. Her patients' families called her a miracle worker. Even competing surgeons called her exceptional. She believed in healing. She believed in excellence. She believed that every child deserved the best medical care regardless of their family's income. But she also knew from both professional experience and personal reality that being black in America meant constantly proving you belonged, that racism didn't stop at medical degrees or 6-figure salaries, that white people saw the color before the credentials. That Thursday afternoon, Alicia had finished her morning surgeries, a complex cardiac repair on a 6-year-old routine, but requiring absolute precision. Nothing unusual, nothing exciting, just what she did every week. She decided to use her lunch break to find graduation earrings for her daughter Maya, who was graduating magna cum laude from UNC Chapel Hill in 2 months. She'd parked her Mercedes SUV in the mall garage, walked into Belk, and headed straight to the jewelry section. She'd been browsing for about 20 minutes, trying on several pairs of diamond studs with the helpful sales associate, Jennifer, a white woman in her 50s who'd been nothing but professional and courteous. Alicia had tried on 3 pairs, asked about certifications, discussed carat weights and settings. Her Hermes bag sat on the counter. Her car keys and hospital ID were visible inside. She was dressed in business casual, tailored slacks, a silk blouse, expensive but understated jewelry. She belonged there, shopped there regularly, had a Belk credit card in her wallet. She was doing exactly what thousands of people do every single day. Browsing expensive jewelry, trying on pieces, considering a purchase for a special occasion. Nothing suspicious, nothing unusual, nothing that should attract security attention. Nothing that would make anyone look twice at a white woman doing the exact same thing. But Officer Thornton, 14 years on the Charlotte Police with 23 complaints documenting his pattern of targeting black citizens, saw something different. Michael Thornton had been with Charlotte Police Department since his early 20s. He'd worked patrol over the years, but spent the last 6 years working off-duty security details at South Park Mall and surrounding retail establishments. His supervisors kept him in these assignments despite his complaint history, because, in their words, he knows the area and store managers feel safe with him around. What they meant was that Thornton stopped every black person he deemed suspicious, questioned African Americans about their presence, treated black shoppers like potential thieves by default, made white retailers feel protected from black customers. 23 complaints in 14 years, 19 of them involving African American citizens. The pattern was unmistakable. 2016, a black accountant shopping at Williams-Sonoma. Officer Thornton followed her through the store, demanded to search her bags even though she'd purchased nothing. The woman was actually a CPA who lived in the neighborhood and shopped there monthly. Thornton claimed she acted nervous and avoided eye contact. Complaint filed. Closed with implicit bias training requirement. 2019. An African-American engineer examining cameras at Best Buy. Thornton confronted him, accused him of shoplifting, demanded he empty his pockets in front of other customers. The man worked for Duke Energy and was legitimately shopping for equipment for his home office. Thornton claimed he matched a description of a theft suspect, a description so vague it applied to any black male. Complaint filed. Resolved with a written counseling. 2021. A black nurse shopping for cosmetics at Sephora. Thornton followed her for 15 minutes, then stopped her at the exit demanding to see her receipt and search her purse. She'd purchased $200 worth of makeup and had receipts for everything. Thornton claimed she was acting suspiciously by looking around too much. Complaint filed. Dismissed with cultural awareness workshop recommendation. Every complaint told the same story. Thornton saw African Americans in white commercial spaces and couldn't accept their legitimacy, couldn't accept that they were customers with money to spend. He assumed theft, assumed stolen credit cards, assumed they couldn't afford what they were shopping for, assumed criminal intent before criminal activity. He demanded receipts for items not yet purchased, demanded proof of payment before transactions, demanded explanations for shopping, things he never demanded from white customers in the same stores doing the same things. And when complaints were filed, the department responded with training certificates instead of discipline, with workshops instead of consequences, with one more chance instead of termination. Internal Affairs had a file on Thornton that should have resulted in termination years ago. 23 documented incidents, 4 settlements paid, dozens of credible witnesses, 7 sustained complaints. But Thornton had allies in the department, supervisors who valued his proactive security work and the fact that mall management specifically requested him, union representatives who protected him at every disciplinary hearing, and a system that prioritized officer retention over accountability to the black citizens he repeatedly profiled. That afternoon, Thornton was positioned near the mall's center court when he noticed movement in Belk's jewelry section through the store's glass entrance. A black woman, trying on jewelry, talking to a sales associate. Thornton's mind made the calculation it always made. Black woman plus expensive jewelry equal potential theft. Black person plus luxury items equals doesn't belong. He didn't consider that this could be a successful professional shopping during lunch. He didn't notice the expensive bag, the professional attire, the hospital ID. He didn't observe that the sales associate was engaged and helpful, showing zero concern. He saw what his biases trained him to see: a black woman who might be distracting the employee to steal, a situation that needed investigation, a potential crime in progress. He walked into Belk and positioned himself near the jewelry section, watching. Alicia had narrowed her choice to 2 pairs of earrings. She was holding them up, comparing them in the mirror Jennifer had provided, discussing which would look better with Maya's graduation dress. "I think the round ones," Jennifer was saying. "They're classic, and with the clarity—" "Excuse me, ma'am." Alicia turned. A white police officer in uniform stood 3 feet away, his expression hard, his hand resting on his duty belt near his weapon. Her stomach tightened. She'd lived this before, seen colleagues experience this, heard the stories, studied the statistics, often enough to know exactly what was happening. Here we go again. Another white cop who can't believe I belong. "Yes, officer?" Alicia said calmly, her hands immediately visible at her sides. "I need to see some identification," Thornton said, his tone already accusatory. "I'm shopping," Alicia responded evenly. "Is there a problem?" "Ma'am, I'm asking for identification. I need to see it now." Jennifer, the sales associate, looked confused. "Officer, is something wrong? Mrs. Montgomery is a regular customer. I'm not talking to you." Thornton cut her off, his eyes never leaving Alicia. "Ma'am, have you purchased anything from this store today?" "I'm in the process of shopping," Alicia said, keeping her voice steady despite the anger building in her chest. "I'm trying to decide between these 2 pairs of earrings for my daughter." "Do you think officers should be required to articulate reasonable suspicion before demanding ID from shoppers? Drop your answer below. I need to see a receipt for any items you've tried on," Thornton said. "Officer, I haven't purchased anything yet," Alicia said slowly, her physician's training in staying calm under pressure kicking in. "I'm browsing. That's what people do when they shop." "Ma'am, I've been watching you handle multiple pieces of jewelry." "Because I'm shopping for earrings," Alicia interrupted, her tone sharpening. "Just like every other customer in this store. What is your reasonable suspicion for detaining me?" Thornton's hand moved closer to his weapon. "I didn't say you're detained. I said I need to see identification. If I'm not detained, then this conversation is over." Alicia turned back to the mirror. "Ma'am, do not turn away from me." Thornton stepped closer. "I have the right to—" "You have the right to articulate reasonable suspicion," Alicia said, turning to face him fully. She pulled her hospital ID from her bag and held it up. "I'm Dr. Alicia Montgomery, Chief of Pediatric Surgery at Atrium Health. I've been shopping in this store for 7 years, and you just stopped me for shopping while black." Thornton barely glanced at the ID. "That doesn't give you the right to—" "The right to what? Shop? Try on jewelry like every white woman in this mall does without a security escort? Ma'am, your attitude is making this worse." "My attitude?" Alicia's voice rose slightly, controlled, but with clear anger breaking through. "Officer, I'm a pediatric surgeon. I performed 2 surgeries this morning. I saved a 6-year-old's life before lunch, and now I'm being interrogated for the crime of shopping for my daughter's graduation gift. If you just cooperate—" "I'm cooperating. You're harassing me." By now, other shoppers had stopped. A white woman in her 60s, a Hispanic couple, 2 white men in business suits, all watching. Several already had their phones out. Jennifer, the sales associate, had backed away, looking uncomfortable but unwilling to intervene. "Officer," Alicia said, her voice dropping to a tone she used in the operating room when dealing with incompetent residents. "I have tried on these earrings with the help of your sales associate. I have my medical license, my hospital credentials, 3 credit cards, and my driver's license in my bag. I have done nothing illegal, nothing suspicious, nothing that would cause you to stop a white woman in this same situation. So I'm going to ask you directly, what is your reasonable suspicion for this stop?" Thornton's face flushed. You were observed handling expensive merchandise in a manner consistent with shopping? Alicia cut him off. Trying on jewelry that customers are invited to try on? Officer, what's your name and badge number? That's not relevant. It's absolutely relevant. Because I'm filing a complaint for racial profiling, and I'd like to make sure I spell your name correctly in the lawsuit. Ma'am, I'm going to need you to calm down. I'm calm, Alicia said, her voice level and cold. I'm also an attorney's daughter, a federal court expert witness on medical malpractice, and someone who knows exactly what a Fourth Amendment violation looks like. You have no reasonable suspicion. You have no probable cause. You have a black woman shopping, and you assume theft. That's racial profiling, officer, and it's illegal. Thornton called for backup. Within 4 minutes, a patrol car arrived. Sergeant David Hargrove stepped out, a 19-year veteran who had worked with Thornton before and had reviewed his complaint file more than once. He approached and immediately saw the problem. A professional woman in expensive clothes being confronted by Thornton. Multiple witnesses recording. A sales associate looking mortified. The obvious signs of a racial profiling incident in progress. Officer Thornton, report, Hargrove said. Suspicious person call, Sarge. Subject was handling expensive jewelry. When I approached, she became hostile and uncooperative. She? Hargrove looked at Alicia, taking in her professional attire, her expensive bag, her obvious composure. Ma'am, may I see your identification? Alicia handed him her hospital ID, her medical license, and her driver's license without a word. Hargrove examined them carefully, pulled out his phone, and called Atrium Health's main line. This is Sergeant Hargrove with Charlotte Police. Can you confirm employment for a Dr. Alicia Montgomery, Chief of Pediatric Surgery? He waited. Yes, thank you. He ended the call and looked at Thornton. This is Dr. Montgomery, Chief of Pediatric Surgery. Her credentials are legitimate. Thornton hesitated. Medical licenses can be... Officer Thornton, Hargrove's voice hardened. What was your reasonable suspicion for this stop? She was handling jewelry in a suspicious manner, trying on earrings that the sales associate was helping her with. A white woman called out from the crowd. I watched the whole thing. The doctor was shopping normally. Your officer profiled her. Another voice. A white man. I saw it too. This is racial profiling. That woman did nothing wrong. Jennifer, the sales associate, finally spoke up, her voice shaking. Officer, Dr. Montgomery is a regular customer. She's always professional and courteous. She was just shopping. I saw no reason for concern. Hargrove turned to Alicia. Dr. Montgomery, would you like to tell me what happened? Alicia's voice was controlled, precise, clinical. Sergeant, I entered this store at approximately 1:30 p.m. I walked directly to the jewelry section to shop for graduation earrings for my daughter. I've been working with Jennifer here for about 20 minutes, trying on various pairs, discussing carats and settings. At no point did I exhibit suspicious behavior. At no point did I attempt to conceal anything. At no point did I do anything that would give any reasonable person cause for concern. She gestured to the counter where 2 pairs of earrings sat on display trays. I had narrowed my choice to these 2 pairs when Officer Thornton approached and demanded identification. When I asked for reasonable suspicion, he couldn't articulate any. When I identified myself as a physician, he dismissed my credentials. When I pointed out this was racial profiling, he escalated. She paused, meeting Hargrove's eyes directly. Sergeant, I have shopped in this store dozens of times over 7 years. I have never been stopped, questioned, or followed until today. The only thing that's different about today is that Officer Thornton was working security. He saw a black woman in the jewelry section and assumed theft. That's not policing. That's racism. A white man in a business suit approached. Sergeant, I'm Richard Carlson. I'm an attorney, and I witnessed this entire incident. I'd be happy to provide a statement. What I saw was textbook racial profiling. Dr. Montgomery was clearly shopping normally. Your officer had no legal basis for this stop. An older white woman joined him. I'm Margaret Foster. I live in Myers Park, and I've shopped here for 30 years. I saw everything. That officer stopped this doctor for no reason except her race. It was appalling. A Hispanic woman stepped forward with her phone. I recorded part of this. You want it for your complaint. Hargrove held up a hand. Thank you all. I'll need statements from anyone willing to provide them. He turned to Thornton, his expression grim. Officer Thornton, you're relieved. Return to your patrol vehicle and wait for me. Sarge, I was following. You were racial profiling, Hargrove said flatly. Return to your vehicle. Now. Thornton walked away, his face flushed, his hands shaking. Within 15 minutes, Lieutenant Karen Westfield arrived, a 22-year veteran who'd tried to discipline Thornton 3 times and been blocked by command staff and union protections. She spoke with Hargrove, reviewed the witness statements, examined Alicia's credentials, and watched a portion of the security footage that the store manager had already pulled up. The footage showed everything. Alicia entering the store, walking directly to jewelry, engaging with Jennifer professionally, trying on earrings, asking questions, normal shopping behavior. Then Thornton entering, watching, approaching with his hand on his weapon. The confrontation. Alicia's calm but firm responses. The witness intervention. Westfield turned to Alicia, her expression a mix of anger and embarrassment. Dr. Montgomery, on behalf of the Charlotte Police Department, I apologize. This was completely inappropriate. This was racial profiling, and it should never have happened. She paused. Officer Thornton has a documented history of similar incidents. He's been counseled, trained, and warned. Clearly, none of that worked. He'll be placed on administrative leave immediately pending investigation. But I'll be frank with you, his career is over. I'll be recommending termination. Alicia looked at her steadily. Lieutenant, how many complaints does Officer Thornton have? Westfield hesitated. 23. How many involving African Americans? 19. And he's still on patrol? Still working security in stores? Still stopping black people for shopping? Dr. Montgomery, Lieutenant, I appreciate your apology, but I'm a doctor. When I see a pattern of malpractice, I don't just apologize to the next victim. I remove the surgeon's ability to operate. Your department has let Officer Thornton operate on black citizens for 14 years, despite a clear pattern. So yes, I'll be filing a formal complaint. And yes, I'll be pursuing legal action. Not for money, though I'm sure my attorney will secure that. But because if this happens to me, a chief of surgery with resources and credentials, imagine what happens to people who don't have my platform. By that evening, the story was spreading through Charlotte's medical community and onto local news. Video clips from witnesses' phones went viral. Hashtag doctor profiled and shopping while black started trending. Chief surgeon racially profiled while shopping for daughter's gift. Charlotte officer with 23 complaints caught on camera targeting black doctor. Multiple witnesses. Describe obvious racial profiling at South Park Mall. The African American medical community responded immediately and forcefully. Atrium Health issued a statement. Dr. Alicia Montgomery is one of our most distinguished physicians and an exemplary leader. The incident at South Park Mall is completely unacceptable and represents exactly the kind of racial discrimination we must eliminate from our society. The North Carolina Medical Association condemned the incident, demanding immediate termination and systematic reform. Even the Charlotte Medical Society, whose membership was predominantly white, publicly defended her, with several white physicians calling it the most clear-cut case of profiling we've seen. Atrium Health received hundreds of calls of support for Alicia, along with demands that the police department face consequences. Alicia hired Benjamin Torres, a prominent civil rights attorney who'd won 14 similar cases and secured major settlements in each. The lawsuit was filed 3 weeks later, naming Officer Michael Thornton, Sergeant David Hargrove, who was later removed due to his immediate intervention, Lieutenant Westfield, the watch commanders who'd kept Thornton in retail security despite his complaint history, and Charlotte Police Department. The allegations were comprehensive. Racial profiling in violation of the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. Unlawful detention without reasonable suspicion or probable cause, in violation of the Fourth Amendment denial of civil rights, under 42 U.S.C. Section 1983, intentional infliction of emotional distress, false imprisonment, supervisory liability for failure to train, discipline, or terminate despite documented pattern, Municipal liability for deliberate indifference to Officer Thornton's pattern of racial profiling. Violation of North Carolina civil rights statutes. The complaint included Thornton's entire history, presented in devastating detail. 23 complaints over 14 years, 19 involving African American citizens in similar circumstances. Upscale retail, professional, settings, commercial districts, all documented, all investigated, all resulting in minimal discipline, all dismissed with training that never changed his behavior. The lawsuit laid out the pattern systematically, showing complaint after complaint, year after year, black victim after black victim, similar circumstances, similar assumptions, similar harassment. $1.8 million in damages, plus attorney fees and mandatory policy reforms. Charlotte's city attorneys reviewed the case. The evidence was overwhelming. Security footage showed everything: the innocent shopping, the unjustified stop, the escalation despite Alicia's cooperation. Body camera footage captured Thornton's inability to articulate reasonable suspicion and his dismissive attitude toward her credentials. Multiple independent witnesses, including white attorneys and longtime residents, corroborated the racial profiling. Alicia's credentials, hospital ID, and credit cards proved her complete legitimacy. Thornton had no legal basis for the stop, no crime, no reasonable suspicion, no articulable facts beyond black woman plus jewelry equals suspicious. Internal affairs files documented the pattern: 23 similar complaints, 19 involving black shoppers, all ignored. Every element of a Power 1983 claim was present. Fourth Amendment violation? Check. 14th Amendment violation? Check. Municipal liability for deliberate indifference? Check. Qualified immunity? Unlikely to apply given the clear precedent against racial profiling in retail settings. The city's risk assessment was clear. Go to trial and lose publicly, with a jury verdict potentially 3 times higher. Settle now and implement reforms. Cut losses and terminate the pattern. The city settled 8 months later. $1.8 million paid to Dr. Alicia Montgomery, the second largest settlement in Charlotte history, for racial profiling. Officer Michael Thornton was terminated 5 weeks after the incident. The union initially filed grievances, demanding arbitration, but withdrew after reviewing the security footage and witness statements. The termination letter was comprehensive. Officer Thornton engaged in racial profiling, detaining a citizen based solely on race without reasonable suspicion or probable cause. He violated department policy on constitutional policing, bias-free policing, and proper detention procedures. He has demonstrated a pattern over 14 years of similar conduct, indicating this was not an isolated incident, but a persistent failure. His continued employment creates unacceptable liability for the city and violates the civil rights of citizens, particularly African American residents. The letter specifically cited 23 prior complaints showing the same racial profiling pattern, noting that progressive discipline had failed to modify behavior. Employment terminated immediately without appeal rights due to the severity of constitutional violations. Thornton's name was entered into the National Decertification Index, preventing him from ever working in law enforcement again anywhere in the country. His 14-year law enforcement career ended permanently. No pension enhancements, no retirement in good standing, no law enforcement work anywhere. The union attempted to fight the termination initially, claiming progressive discipline wasn't followed properly. The city provided Thornton's complete complaint file, security footage, witness statements, and Dr. Montgomery's compelling testimony to the arbitrator. Faced with the documentation and mounting public pressure, the union recognized the case was indefensible. The union withdrew the appeal 2 weeks later with a terse statement about respecting the process. Thornton released no public statement. Dr. Alicia Montgomery testified before Charlotte City Council in a packed hearing 2 months after the incident. Dozens of supporters filled the room: medical professionals, civil rights activists, concerned citizens. Local clergy wore #Justice for Daughter Montgomery buttons. I'm a pediatric surgeon. I've dedicated 15 years to saving children's lives. I've lived and worked in this city for 12 years. I pay taxes here. My children go to school here. She paused, looking at each council member. I know my rights. I know the Constitution because I've served as an expert witness in federal court. I know what unlawful stops look like because I've reviewed these cases. I've studied the law. I've advised hospitals on civil rights compliance. And Officer Thornton stopped me for shopping while black, for having the audacity to browse diamond earrings in a store where I've shopped for years, for committing the crime of being African American in the jewelry section. I was humiliated in front of other shoppers. I was treated like a criminal in a store where I'm a regular customer. I was detained for doing exactly what white women do every single day without question: shopping for a gift for my daughter. 23 complaints over 14 years, 19 involving African Americans. That's not bad luck. That's not mistakes. That's a pattern. That's policy. That's the department tolerating racism. A pattern your department tolerated for 14 years because Officer Thornton's supervisors valued his proactive security work and positive feedback from store managers over the constitutional rights of the black people he profiled. She paused, letting the words settle. $1.8 million is what it cost to finally remove one officer who should have been fired after complaint 3. But money doesn't undo standing in front of Belk being treated like a thief. It doesn't erase the message that my medical degree doesn't matter if my skin is black. It doesn't prevent the next officer with 23 complaints from doing the same thing to the next victim who can't fight back. This council needs to ask itself, why did it take 23 complaints? Why did it take a lawsuit? Why did it take someone with my resources and credentials to finally get action? And what happened to all the victims before me who couldn't fight back? Standing ovation from supporters. Several council members visibly uncomfortable. Charlotte Police Department announced policy reforms 4 months later under pressure from the lawsuit and community demands. Police Chief Johnny Jennings acknowledged the need for change and committed to preventing future incidents. Measures included automatic supervisory review after 3 complaints with similar patterns within 36 months. Mandatory termination proceedings after 4 sustained complaints involving racial profiling. Real-time flagging system for officers with patterns of stops involving racial disparities. Mandatory supervisor approval for any retail security. Stop involving only suspicious person observations without specific criminal activity. Body camera footage. Review of 100% of retail security stops involving minority citizens. Anti-racism training conducted by actual civil rights experts and victims of profiling, not police trainers. Command staff accountability. Supervisors who ignore patterns face discipline up to termination. Community Oversight Board with subpoena power to review complaint patterns. Quarterly public reporting of retail security stops by officer, race, location, and outcome. Integration of National Decertification Index. Checks to prevent hiring officers terminated for racial profiling elsewhere. The police union initially opposed several reforms, particularly command staff accountability and the 4-complaint rule, but accepted them in contract negotiations after public pressure became insurmountable. Why do departments wait for the 23rd complaint instead of acting on the 3rd? Why does it take a lawsuit to implement common sense accountability? Comment your thoughts. Reforms to be fully implemented within 9 months, with progress reports every quarter. This wasn't about one Thursday afternoon. This wasn't about one shopping trip. This was about a department that let Officer Michael Thornton profile black citizens for 14 years despite 23 documented complaints, showing a clear pattern of racial profiling. The pattern was obvious from complaint 2. A black professional questioned in an upscale store. An African-American shopper asked for proof of purchase before buying. It was undeniable by complaint 7. Same story, different victim. Same bias, different day. Same assumptions, different location. But Charlotte police kept Thornton on security details, kept assigning him to upscale retail, kept ignoring the warnings, kept accepting the excuses until he finally profiled someone with the knowledge, resources, and courage to force accountability. Dr. Alicia Montgomery paid the price, treated like a thief in front of other shoppers for browsing jewelry her daughter would love, humiliated in a store where she'd shopped for years, made to justify her presence for doing what white women do without a second thought. The message delivered clearly: your medical degree doesn't matter. Your position doesn't matter. Your humanity doesn't matter as much as your race. Officer Michael Thornton's career is over. Terminated. Decertified. Barred from law enforcement permanently. That's consequence. The city paid $1.8 million. That's accountability. The department implemented reforms. That's progress. But those measures came after 14 years and 23 complaints. 14 years of black victims who didn't have Alicia's advantages: a medical degree, institutional support, resources to fight back. 14 years of African American shoppers who were profiled, harassed, detained, and had no recourse. No witnesses, no cameras, no resources, no platform, no one listening. How many others did Officer Thornton stop in those 14 years? How many young black men detained for shopping? How many African American women questioned about their presence in stores? How many professionals humiliated who couldn't fight back? How many complaints never filed because victims knew nothing would change? The real question isn't why Officer Thornton did this. Racists will racist. The question is why the system let him keep doing it. Why do departments wait for complaint 23 instead of acting on complaint 3? Why do they recognize patterns after 19 similar incidents instead of stopping them after 5? Why do they prioritize protecting officers with documented racist patterns over protecting the black citizens those officers target? Why does it take a chief surgeon, someone with credentials white people respect, to finally get accountability? Why do settlements come from taxpayer money while officers who caused them face no financial consequences? Because if we don't fix the system that kept Michael Thornton working retail security for 14 years, if we don't address the culture that protected him despite the pattern, valued his positive feedback from store managers over civil rights, ignored black victims until a credentialed one fought back, then we're just waiting for the next officer with 23 complaints, the next African American professional, the next black citizen who gets profiled for existing while black, for having the audacity to shop, for the crime of being in the wrong store with the wrong skin color. This case represents thousands of others that never make news. Tens of thousands of black Americans profiled every year in retail stores by officers and security guards who never face consequences. Millions of shopping experiences tainted by suspicion based on race, not behavior. A system where being black in a jewelry section is treated as reasonable suspicion. Comment if this should be federal law. Any officer with 4 similar complaints within 5 years faces automatic termination. No implicit bias training that doesn't work. No diversity workshops that change nothing. No progressive discipline that protects racism. Immediate termination. Career over. Out of law enforcement permanently. 4 complaints. 4 similar incidents. 4 African Americans profiled in similar circumstances. That's not isolated incidents. That's a pattern. And patterns should end careers, not black people's dignity. And if you believe these stories matter, if you think 23 years of complaints should result in accountability before year 24, if you believe black professionals deserve the same presumption of legitimacy that white people get automatically when they shop, then hit that subscribe button. We're exposing police misconduct. We're demanding real accountability. We're fighting for every black American who's been profiled while shopping. This isn't about one officer or one doctor. It's about a system that gave Officer Thornton 23 chances, 23 complaints, 19 black victims, 14 years, while black Americans don't even get the benefit of the doubt when they walk into a store. It's about departments that protect officers with documented patterns of racial profiling and the African American human beings who pay the price for that protection with their dignity, their safety, and their constitutional rights.